From ContainerDays Hamburg, this video is proudly presented by Dux IT.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back. It's my second ContainerDays. And last time, it was exactly the same stage. I think almost also the same time, just on a very different topic. Today, I'm going to talk about something which is very dear to my heart. I'm product owner of this product since day one. I came back to work for Saxo Bank 2.5 years ago. And I think it really solved a very hard problem for us. And I hope you will bring something home after this talk. This should be something of you are very familiar with. As a developer, you commit your application code into Git repo. There are some pipeline runs, and there you go, you have Docker file, or if some of you also build Helm charts. And in the other infrastructure configuration repo, where, let me move my cursor so it's not there, where you have your configuration saying in what environment you want to deploy which version of your applications or which version of charts. And then your beloved GitOps agent will pull those configurations into Kubernetes cluster. Voila, you have your application up running. So everything's awesome, right? Because everything is there. You have Kubernetes, and then you have the reconciliation. It should be. Everything should work as it should, because it's a desired state at its best. You keep reconciling, keep self-healing. However, one day your application might go wrong without you changing either your application code nor infrastructure configurations. So you might wonder, so what's going on? And you dive deeper, it turns out that your application no longer has access to one of its dependent applications. And you have to follow the trace and then talk to different teams. And you find out that the access was removed due to one routine cleanup. So your faith on GitOps starts to fade. What it promised, the desired state configuration at its best, is no longer true because it doesn't apply to all your dependencies. I want to make sure this talk is actually relevant to all of you. So if you can do me a favor, right, scan this barcode or this QR code and answer this very simple question. What percentage of your company's applications are running in Kubernetes today? And then let me see if I can show the... So maybe I can bring this up. Let me move to the side, so if you haven't got a chance to. Could these 23 people, the ones is 76 to 100%, to raise your hand? Where are you? Excellent. I'd love to work for your company. Lucky you. Let me bring this one down. And go back to the slides. Yes. So for us, we are around 30%. We have around 100 namespaces, whereas around 60 plus teams deploying their applications there. We have around more than 1,000 applications running in the Kubernetes clusters. So if we go back to the broken diagram, the part where the access get removed, this happens, and I think I see these arrows every second or third month. It's actually not the most complicated one, because in the complicated one there are multiple layers. For example, we also have Kafka as an external dependency. It doesn't run inside Kubernetes. We have our identity provider. They are also outside of Kubernetes clusters. As an organization, we also use different type of vaults. Some are in the cloud, some are on-prem. Of course, between all these, there's a firewall. And there's not just one firewall. We have 3-4 layers firewalls. Even the application, it happened to be in the other 70%. They also have certificate they need to maintain. They have DNS they need to maintain. So think about how many teams you need to talk to get one application shipped to production when you have all these dependencies. So that's why some developers have this, actually one of the highest job search from the tech people after they don't want to do tech anymore is to be a farmer because it's so much simpler to deal with just in the crops and fields. But in Saxo Bank, if you tell someone, say, hey, this cannot be done, there's always one or two engineers going to say, hey, hold my beer, I'm going to get this done in one way or the other. And that's the spirit we work on. Despite our setup is extremely complex, but we make it work, and we keep build on top of that. So a bit about Saxo Bank. We are an online trading platform, so we don't have physical office, except it's for our employees. Every day, there's around 17 billions of US dollars going through our trading platform. This number is a little bit higher when now we have a very active president in the United States. We work with over 200 banks and brokers, and right now we have 1.4 million clients. And the assets also have reached 118 billion euro since our first half of year 2025's report came out not so long ago. We started our cloud journey 8 years ago, and we start from cloud first because there was a lot of consultants going around the bank selling to our executives on the benefits of cloud. But soon we found out the cloud is too expensive if we just go cloud only. So we start looking at the cloud native space and start adopting Kubernetes, etc. But then we learn in the hard way that you also need to make your Kubernetes cluster disaster recovery ready. And we also start doing more cost optimization. And right now we are at hybrid state where we have these 30% of applications running in the cloud and rest 70, our vintage applications still running on-prem. It's a big work we're undergoing that to move them into a container platform. A bit about me. I'm Jinhong Brejnholt. I'm Chief Cloud Architect, and I'm leading a few teams there, including Cloud Center of Excellence and the container platforms at Saxo Bank. I have my little troublemaker there with me today. Denmark is an excellent country because you actually can have number plate, almost all kinds of number plate that you want on your car. I try to be very active in the community too, because I think everything I learn and a lot of things we benefit from the community really deserve some of us at least to give back, because there's only less than 1% of people contribute back to the open source community. So we do meetups, we do together with the Casper, the previous speaker, and the Mass, the next speaker. We are also organizing before called the Kubernetes Community Days. Right now it's called the Cloud Native Denmark Conference this year. So if you are nearby, make sure to check the program. We actually have a lot of awesome talks coming up. So let's go back to the mess. We have all these problems, and then they exist both on-prem, in the cloud, and the applications going in between. How can we make sure there's a coherent pattern or framework works for all of them. I mean, I've been working in Kubernetes space for around 8 years now. That I see that as the only way for me to understand infrastructure. I have a software engineering background. I only understand how to write code for applications. And I always think it's super complicated in the data center about firewalls, network configuration, etc. Despite I've taken on the cloud certificates, I still think it's somewhat a black box until I met Kubernetes, that everything is just simple YAMLs, and they have a very, very unified way, very easy to understand and adopt. So therefore, that's also the way we use to tackle this problem. And I'm going to read you a little story. This is how we use to adapt, to train our newcomers. This is still very, very new, but bear with me. Just to introduce this product called Blueprint, the method we use to solve this problem. The adventure of 4 friends who built the bank's blueprint. Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Saxo Bank, there lived 4 very busy friends. Together, they kept the land of service running smoothly. The first friend is a service catalog. He is a librarian. He had a magical library where every service in the kingdom kept its own book. Each book told the story of what the service does, where it lives, who takes care of it, and where it needs to talk to. So track the dependencies, ownership, etc. Service catalog was the only place where these stories could be written down, the heart of kingdom's knowledge. So you can't really write your service definition elsewhere than in service catalog. So Deatherich is the second friend. He was an explorer and a guide. If anyone in the kingdom wanted to find something, a service's owner, its secrets, its friend, like Kafka topics, Deatherich could show them the way. He could even tell you how the services were feeling and whether they were working well. In short, Deatherich was in the kingdom's ask me anything friend. So that's basically our portal. It shows if your blueprint is healthy or not. It also shows it's the front end of service catalog, so you can see the dependencies of different services. But I'm going to show that later. The third friend is service blueprint, is the teacher. She was the storyteller. Her scrolls explained how to use Kingdom's magic, how to get a Kubernetes namespace, how to borrow a key to another service's castle, how to summon a managed identity dragon. It's a little bit stretched there, but you get the gist of it. It's basically our how-to guide, the introduction to the tech talk of Service Blueprint. She also shared the tales of the past and the dreams of the future, where the kingdom's automation magic was heading next. That's our roadmap. So things we have built and the things we are going to build in the future will also be displayed in the site. Finally, the last friend is infrastructure automation, the builder. He was the builder and the fixer, always on the move. If service catalog said a service needed a castle, a bridge, a magic key, infrastructure automation made it happen quickly and correctly. He commanded a team of operators who flew across all the Kubernetes lands, make sure everything was just right. So that's the operator, on the collection of operators, they live in a repo called infrastructure automation. And we have operators for all the automation we have and keeps reconciling them, make sure all the dependencies are maintained at all times. Together, these 4 friends formed the blueprint, a map of how services were created, cared for, and connected in Saxo Bank. Service catalog wrote the truth, Deatherich spread the truth, Service Blueprint taught the truth, infrastructure automation made the truth real. And so, the kingdom ran smoothly as long as everyone remembered to visit all 4 friends when they needed help. The end. So this is a story I made when I try to, for example, read for my little ones what this thing does. It gives a little peek into what it actually entails. So how does it look in action? So developer, they will write their service definition into service catalog repo. And our operators, they sit in Kubernetes cluster, but they monitor this repository. Be similar like Argo or Flux, just a lot more specific tool. They only look at the thing they care about. They only look at a certain annotation, for example. And once those service definitions are approved, like the PI is approved by either enterprise architects or the security or some audit compliance officer. It depends on the content that they are written down. The change will be pulled into Kubernetes cluster, and then developer will be able to monitor the blueprint status at the backstage, our internal developer portal. So that's the dev reach, we call it. So this is one of the service definition. I didn't want to do too much animation, so I only made it to the first one, the namespace, and then I give up. So now let me see if I can do this. Yes, all right. You can see the namespace as asset management. It just means now this namespace has to be there. You might think, namespace is very easy, right? Why can't you just create a namespace? But there's a lot more when you want to have a namespace in a bank. We need to know who actually owns it, who's going to support it, who's the manager of it, etc., etc. That's a service account. So that's the service account. The calculations gonna get the permission gonna come later on, and some description and CMDB ID. This ID is important for the services in Saxo Bank. That's the place we can find all the information. In another portal where developer deeply in love with, it's called ServiceNow. No, they hate it. They hate it. That's why we have service catalog. Some names, and now comes an interesting bit called the consumes API. So this is where the service is telling us, say, we need to be able to access those APIs. It can be Kafka topics, or it can be a role from other applications. And then that's life cycle, just means they need to be deployed in production. All the access need to be provisioned all the way to production. And then the owner group provides API. It's where the service is trying to say, I have those things others can consume. So again, it will be created, and the role will be created, on the access will be created. So if it's like here, it's very much a Kafka thing. You can see in the logs version 2. It means I need to be able to write to these topics, because I'm providing this. If I can't write, how can others consume? So behind the scene, the operator will go make sure the access is set correctly. And as an approval group, we need this. So when the developer try to make change to the infrastructure repo, let's say they want to make a change to this service at production environment, we will check, are you in the correct group? Deployment group or support group or approval group. You need to be in the right group in order to make those actions. And then they're a little bit more like corporate content managed by who, owned by who is central. And this is our dev reach site. I'm a little bit envy Casper. He could just pull up the terminal and then show you. I can't just pull up. There will be too many sensitive information that I have to go through with my legal and the compliance. But I can show you screenshots. This is our all the APIs we have right now in the bank. And this is all the components we have, like the service we saw before, rebalancing service. It's like one of those. Here you can see we have a few plugins available, and we have tenant repository, namespace configuration, developer beloved ServiceNow, link. And then we also have these relations. So that's exactly the service where I showed before, rebalance calculation service. So if we zoom in, you'll be able to see who's the owner. So this asset management support group is the owner of this service, and it consumes those APIs. So we need to make sure the access is granted. It also provides those APIs. So again, access needs to be granted properly. While we are at DevReach, I also would like to show you some of the other plugins we have in the bank. For example, this is one of the service my team has. We have code quality, where we show how much code theft coverage, and if there's any code smell, etc. And there are some tech doc and some description of the service, and there's tech doc link, and then all other standard links. There are some very simple relations. And then on top, there are different tabs. And the more interesting ones is this Blueprint tab. So that's where we can see how Blueprint does in all clusters. So you can see that not all clusters has the same amount of configurations. And this depends on some service. They have a certain environment, and they might not be applicable for the other environment. So here in live, you can see, okay, it have certain called the Kafka access control list request, namespace request, service account entry, etc. So that's how developer can use it to monitor the Blueprint, because this is our custom resources. So it might not show exactly as how we want it in here. We also have this headlamp plugin here. They could look at the deployment status. So what kind of benefit does our Blueprint give to different roles? For developers, it's clarity of a requirement. So they no longer need to know, okay, if I want to have application running in Kubernetes, which need to talk to the application running on-prem, what kind of identity should they have, and what access, where should I apply those access? They just need to go to one place. Instead, they need to talk to Kafka team, database team. They need to talk to network team, container platform team, the cloud center of excellence. The list goes on. And then they could not even get everything correct in the first round. But if they do it here, they just need to talk to us. That's one team, and they will make sure that the application can spin up at the target environment with all the required dependencies in place. For platform teams, the reason why I mentioned platform teams, I don't know if you remember, I mentioned something around namespace automation. Namespace is easy to create, but in Saxo Bank, we have a lot of processes and requirements we need to fulfill. So that the namespace YAML file is not usually you see, right? It's very neat, small, maybe 10, 15 lines of YAML. Ours is like, I think last time I saw it was like 350 lines, if not more, for one standard ones. And they need to be provisioned into all environments with the correct role assignment, because all these teams, they belong to different groups, and those group assignments need to be in place, linked with the cost center, finance record, etc. So for them, they also appreciate Blueprint, because there are things we also take away from them, so they don't need to manually configure, for example, tenant repo for developers. And for security and the governance, it's traceability and control. So once they have some special roles, like for example, Switzerland, we operate in Switzerland, and it's very different if you want to read that data. It's not enough, say, the team who offer the topic, you just need to get their consent, or enterprise architect. You actually need to get someone there with a certain mandate, might not know exactly about technology, but they know what the data means. They need to come in and approve the PR. So we also train the very much non-techies coming to Git and then learn how to read the PR, see the diff, and approve a PR once they are comfortable with them. And all this is logged in one place. Now it's also very easy for us to show to our audit what are different kinds of role was provisioned and approved by who. So if we go back to this huge mess earlier we had before to right now, this is how it looks. While you still have your application code, you still have your tenant repo, this infrastructure configuration repo, where you put in, say, which environment I want to run what. But now there's a third repo. You need to put in all your dependency, the description of your services. But what you get in return is your application is running inside Kubernetes like before, together with their dependencies. So now the adoption question, right? You have something awesome. You will always want to ask, how about the adoption? How many teams are actually using this service blueprint? There are some statistics I pulled out from Q1, where in our service catalog repo, we have 701 PR completed. I did it some time ago, and then the access requested from 109 distinct developers. So this, we might not have everyone yet, but we are definitely on the way of getting everyone. And in the live environment, we have some example blueprints. For example, we are managing over 500 Kafka access requests. We have some of these database roles for their own database, not for shared database. And then some entry ID roles, and we have, for example, namespace automation we talked about before, also for Kibana namespace, for example. So there are different things that are very much tailored to our organization, our own way of configuring authentication authorization. I would like to say this is true, but it's probably only true for this 30% of all our developers. Saxo Bank has a lot of developers, like over 1,000 developers, 60 teams. It's only made up of some part of them. Maybe when we start being more mature, so this is a journey. When we are getting more mature, also start doing more in automation for on-premises, those vintage applications. Then I think I'll be able to show this picture in next conference, hopefully, that all our developers are as cute as the kitties, because that's happy about the setup. Finally, there are some learnings I would like to share with you. First of all, GitOps doesn't equal to app readiness. I just noticed this still there. It doesn't equal to app readiness. There are things outside of the current tenant repo, things outside the Helm chart, because not everything, for us, not everything running inside Kubernetes. You can't automate if you haven't declared. So if you first thing is to get your thoughts down, say, what do my application need? And then make sure there's a way to address that. Service-to-service trust have to be in the first-class citizen. Because one day, if you're also going to build such automation at your organization, it will be so tempting to just do platform automation. Because it's easy, it's all your people, right? And for us, for example, monitoring team, it's our people. It's very easy for us to automate things for them. We speak in the same language. But the ones reading this help, it's our application developers. They are the end user, and they really struggle to talk to different platform teams. Platform teams are not their people. So prioritize their needs over your own platform needs. Automation is a journey. I talk about we build a lot of automation for the application running inside Kubernetes when they need to go outside to talk. But on-prem is actually where the crown jewelry is. We have just started building DNS and certificate automation. We are onboarding the teams right now. And it's just different. It's different when you work with the traditional applications. However, for a lot of enterprise, those are actually still the money-making applications from the bank. So don't leave anyone behind. If you build something, try to build for as many people as possible. Platform team and developer has to work together. We have a lot of good developers. We could let them try out our automations, and then we get feedback and we learn from it. Because to design, let's say the schema, for example, you saw earlier with the different things, the YAML file looks nothing special about it. But it's very difficult to get to the conclusion, say, is this schema sufficient? Is it future-proof? Did we cover all the cases, or can we cover 80% of cases? So what we did is we tried to do as much preparation as we can, and then we rolled it out, and let's see. The good thing is, the service catalog is in one place. So even if we made a mistake, for example, we didn't cater for some big use case, we could just change it. We changed the format a few times now because we didn't see everything coming. But because everything was in one place, we can do an in-place update without affecting all developers' individual repos. Last thing I want to say, if your GitOps setup still surprises you at runtime, maybe it's time for you to also step back and then try to review the setup and see if you can blueprint on the dependencies. Because it's not enough to just get up in the infrastructure. You really need to blueprint on the intent. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope this is useful.
We already have a lot of questions to you, actually. There is one highlighted at how did the adoption went and how it fit all the individual requirements in the other teams. Can you tell me more about it?
Yes, I hope the adoption page have given you a little bit hint on that. So we're still on the way, but for the ones running inside Kubernetes, I think we have almost all of them covered. There's very few edge cases. Sometimes people go out of our automation framework to for example, they will go to Kafka team to ask for access. But the good thing is platform team stick together. So Kafka team, they will push the request back. Database team, they will push the request back, say you need to go via Blueprint. So for the automation we have, people are using it. If not 90%, I think it is somewhere near that, if not higher.
Thank you. The next question is if the dashboard is open source or just invented by your company.
Thank you so much. The dashboard, that's Backstage. So it is open source. If you search for Spotify Backstage, that's open source. But there are some plugins we made it ourselves. For example, the Blueprint one. But if you need the help, you can write to me. I'm pretty sure my engineering team will be happy to give you a demo of how do we do it.
Thank you. And let me mark this question as done. And how do you model external components like a Kafka in the blueprints?
How do I implement access control and firewall configuration across system boundaries? Yes, I'll take in the first part first. How do I model external components? It's a custom resource. So what we do, it's a custom resource in Blueprint, but when we need to do the actual action, we still call the API, Kafka. So some of them, we are making PRs behind the Blueprint. So we're making PR on behalf of the services. So they go to different, for example, Kafka, they have their own state repository. So we go there to their access control state repository and make a PR based on the correct, for example, identity of the service in different environment and making the necessary adjustment to it. For databases, something different, but for different, and also, of course, if they have application to application, they will be directly called to Graph API. So there are different ways, depends on who the backend is and what kind of operation it should be. Sometimes it's calling an API, sometimes it's making a PR. But I think it's around these two flavor. How do I implement access control? I'm not sure about the access control and firewall configurations across system boundaries. Yeah, it's API calls. So it's mainly API calls. Even firewall, for example, firewall is something we're gonna do the next after DNS and certificate. We're gonna do firewall, but we're already making designs for it. We have 4 or 5 layers of firewalling, and luckily all of them have APIs. So it's us, the operator, interact with the API. So API, I cannot say API server, but APIs of those external systems, and they fetch the configuration status and keep checking it periodically. It's just another lengthier way to maintain the desired state configuration.
Thank you. At this point, I think we have to, unfortunately, stop with the Q&A. Maybe you can reach out after the session. Maybe they can talk to you.
Yeah.
We are a bit limited in time, and it's great to see that you have so many questions. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
From ContainerDays Hamburg, this video is proudly presented by DAX IT.